Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak, and it's time now I want us to transition to talk about the National Dialogue Committee report. They presented that, and there are raft of measures there. Of course, there are concerns, and you'll be listening to some of the voices on what they say about what they think of the report. The president saying it's good and should be implemented. There are certain proposals, and I want us to begin with the cost of living. There's a suggestion there to cut travel expenditure by 50%, to cut per diems and daily subsistence allowances by 30%, a recommendation to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Fred, because you would know, you're in the Secretariat, these proposals, are you convinced they respond to the question of cost of living in the immediate sense?
Thank you, Sam. First of all, allow me to say that this report followed the framework agreement that was signed by both parties, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition and Kenya Kwanza Alliance. And in the framework agreement, it provides that the final report shall have agreed issues and issues that are not agreed upon. And any contentious issue shall be forwarded to the principals. So let's start from there. Mm-hmm. If you recall, on 3rd of August, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya reiterated that their formulated issues for discussions were, number one was cost of living, electoral justice, outstanding constitutional issues, and fidelity political party, among others. That remained our position. The NADCO went and prioritized the issues, starting with the electoral justice and then cost of living. Now, let me take you back to the cost of living that you're asking. I strongly believe that there was an opportunity for giving cogent solutions that were going to address the cost of living in the short term, mid-term, and long term. And I want to say this because for Azimio, we were very clear, led by our head of delegation, His Excellency Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, and we gave cogent reasons on how and why we believe that addressing the cost of living was important. We gave three. Number one was policy, number two was administrative, and number three was legislative. On the policy is where you're talking about making it a policy that in terms of travel, we cut down to those percentages. Mm-hmm. But also on the legislative, review of the Appropriation Act to save some money. Then review of the Finance Act also to save some billions. So we strongly believe that our proposals, among them scrapping the housing levy, reducing the VAT from 16% to 8%, and zero budgeting, proposing zero budgeting going forward, would save us a lot of money. And even some of the state departments like correctional services, just trying to match with these international standards of the number of prisoners in a prison, right now 66 to maybe 32, to cut down and save some 18 billion. Our projection was showing that if we do all these things, we would actually save over 230 billion that could be used in reducing the high cost of living. Unfortunately, Sam, Kenya Kwanza, if you look at their issues, it appears that cost of living was not a priority to them. So, again, I say that report has got issues that have been agreed and issues that have not been agreed. That is how the report has come. First of all, we must also congratulate the public. If you read the report of 296 pages with over 820 paragraphs, you can see the submission of every stakeholder that was involved, numerous of them. And just to give you an example, we strongly disagree with Kenya Kwanza on the assertion that the cost of living, the high cost of living, is as a result of bad policy of, for example, subsidizing consumption instead of production. We strongly disagree. A position that has been confirmed by the Institute of Economic Affairs, their own control of budget, and numerous experts like Bill Okero and the rest. They were there live and they gave their submissions. So it means it is not true that to address the cost of living, as we are being told by Kenya Kwanza, that you must only subsidize production. But it involves also subsidizing consumption. It involves prudent use of public resources, ending corruption, and also ending wastages, like those travels. You are just reading for us some here, the allocation to the office of the president, those billions. Then there's the office of the deputy president. Those are billions, and these travels that we see, domestic and international, there are so many, and we can save money. What I'm saying, Sam, I am not convinced as a Kenyan, not only as Azimio, as a Kenyan, that the justice on the cost of living could easily address the concerns that we have currently. And we have given our position. As Azimio, we have listed a whole page of resolutions on how to address it.
But your key proposals were that you're proposing to reduce the VAT on fuel by half, back to 8%. You're also proposing to scrap the housing levy, which obviously the Kenya Kwanza did not agree. But do you think these are implementable? I mean, that suggestion to cut travel expenditure by 50%, and even if you cut it, what is the impact that you're looking at?
I think it is possible, Sam, because we are looking at, when you are in a crisis like now, you are looking at anywhere you can save, and you accumulate them, anywhere you can save. And we believe that the reason why probably cost of living is high now, it is tied to the fuel. Everything is fuel. Everything. If you are to just lower it by half, then there'll be some savings you'll make, and you can actually drastically reduce the cost of living. Number two, the impact on saving on the domestic and international travels is huge. Because you have seen some of these CSs when they travel, they go with a delegation. And Honorable Ruto just said the other day that already he has started implementing some of those by travel. But himself, maybe today, will tell us that he has also cut his travel by 50%. Kenyans will be happy. I hope he says that. But now, we hope that even as we do all these things, anywhere that will require saving, whether it is in the Finance Act, repealing some of those sections in the Finance Act, Appropriation Act 2023, whether it is in the corruption that we have seen. In this regime, we have seen some allegations, almost 5 of them. You remember the KEMSA, you remember the oil, you remember the poison and sugar. There are quite a number. If indeed some money were lost in those scandals, or were supposed to be lost, then addressing those concerns of corruption would save us money. So that's why we are saying, for us, we strongly believe that the greatest issue of concern to the people of Kenya today and now is the high cost of living, which we prioritize as number one in our issue of formalization.
So you say to be implemented, and they're implementable. We're in the month of November, almost halfway the current financial year. When do they come to effect?
Well, the framework agreement says that once this final report is released, it shall be taken to the to the minority leadership and the majority leadership, and to the two principals, the president and the Azimio leader, Raila Amolo Odinga. Then it will be tabled for adoption and implementation. I strongly believe that today that report will be in Parliament. And once they convene...
So what is the process? Tabled in Parliament for adoption, no debate, no amendment?
Of course, it will be debated. It will be debated. But you see, some of those consensus... You see, the mandate of the committee was to facilitate dialogue, consensus building, and address issues that could require constitutional, legal, and policy. Okay. Some of those will have to go through Parliament, so they'll be debated. But some of those consensus issues have been ring-fenced.
Fine. Let me hear from Honorable Mbui. Your take on this report, specifically on that cost of living, and is this something that is a quick win, or to have to take a long process for all those changes to be implemented?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And please allow me to just go back a little bit to what Honorable Ruku said about governors, because he has accused governors of having high budgets for running their offices. an MCS for sleeping on the job. And I want to remind him that just a week ago, a supplementary budget came to the House that was increasing the expenditure for the Office of the President, by quite an amount of money. In fact, to the point where we were very, very disgruntled. And some of the proposals were, for example, to build a pavilion, in State House. We have had this State House from the time of independence. We've never had the need for that pavilion. So I don't know why suddenly it was such a priority at a time when we are grappling with a disaster like El Nino and the high cost of living, and Kenyans are suffering, as we keep saying. Now, on this national dialogue committee, one of the main purposes was basically to bring national healing and reconciliation. Remember, this team was put together after a very protracted, fight by Kenyans to try and get their rights heard. Because after this regime came into office, everything just skyrocketed. And so Kenyans were disgruntled. They couldn't afford to educate their children, to feed their families. And so they went to the streets, which is allowed under Article 37 of our Constitution. But then later on, we decided it's better maybe to talk to each other than to fight out there in the streets. And that is why this thing was born. So for me, I think basically it has served a purpose because it has calmed the temperatures of the country. But the real issue that brought us out to the streets was the cost of living. It still remains a problem to date, Sam. And I will tell you that we had a function that we attended in Vihiga with my party leader, who was a co-chair leader from our side, and we were categorical that if the cost of living is not addressed, members of parliament would probably have a very big challenge agreeing to support that report. But I also want to explain that when this thing was put together, there are two sides. And the agreement from the beginning, Sam, was that each of the sides would respect the opinion of the other side. So we brought in our agenda, they brought their agenda. In that report, even though we are disgruntled about the cost of living not having been handled well, we have accepted the report as it is to present to the House with our grievances, because the report indicates what was not agreed upon.
Absolutely.
So it's important for people to know that my party leader did not say it's okay now the way it is. He said it's okay as long as you note that our concerns on the cost of living have not been addressed the way we wanted. So that's the report we are receiving. We are receiving a report that says we've agreed fully on this, we've agreed partially on this, we totally disagree on this bit. And for me, I think on the cost of living, Sam, it is doable. It is doable. This regime thinks that when you tax people excessively, you collect more money. The matter of fuel is one case in point. They increased the VAT on fuel by 8%. They doubled the VAT on fuel. And actually, the collections from fuel have dropped. Why? Because people probably stopped traveling more, driving. Those families that have two cars stopped using one of the cars. People have started carpooling. And so basically, the collections we're expecting had to go down. If you're running a shop, and this is basic economics, you're running a shop, and you decide you're going to increase the cost of every product in your shop, it doesn't automatically mean you become richer. It might even make you poorer because people will shun your shop and go and buy elsewhere. That's what is happening. So we did talk to them and say, let us reduce some of these taxes, excessive taxes, so that we make it fair. Mm-hmm. The housing levy, the government is excited about collecting money from the pockets of Kenyan workers. Unfortunately, the reality is that you actually sometimes need to have some money that stimulates the economic growth. If people have less disposable income, they have less money to spend, the economy stands in growth. And that's a very basic, again, economic understanding. So I don't know who was the economic advisor and why they can't even look at these very basic things. So I think that if they were to amend the Finance Act and scrap that, remove that 8% they increased, scrap this housing levy, in fact, even do away with this increase in the turnover tax that they proposed, probably business environment would improve. And that basically means that then the country will be in the right trajectory. Right now, we're in trouble.
So what would that take?
Sorry?
Because already there's a Finance Act in operation. What would it take to do those things you're saying?
Parliament. We would amend the Finance Act.
Timelines?
Yes, we can amend it, and it's
timelines are you looking
doable.
at?
Sorry?
Can you amend it before 6 months?
By the time the process starts, the 6 months will be over. And you know what you cannot do, Sam, is you cannot bring the law exactly the same way it was. That's the only thing you can do. But you can bring it back. Okay. It is possible, yes. What you can do in Parliament is, if you bring a certain, for example, motion in a certain, framed in a certain way, and it fails on the floor of the House, then you cannot reintroduce it until 6 months are over. If it is different, because this would be an amendment act, it wouldn't be the same act. So this would be, can be sorted out. But what we have agreed upon, the reduction of the road maintenance levy by 5 shillings and reduction in fuel adulteration by 3 shillings. I think that's a step in the right direction. But on the part of travel expenditure and subsistence allowance, you know, dropping travel expenditure by 50% and subsistence allowance by 30%, I think it's also a step in the right direction. But I'm wondering how much exactly are we going to get out of that? So I think we needed to think broadly, and I still feel that as Azimio, we are not satisfied that these will sort out the problems of our people.
All right. The expenditure for travel by both the county and national governments in the financial year ending June 2023 was 37.8 billion. So even if you had to cut it by half, that comes to about, is it 18 point something? 18, yeah. Billion shillings? Yeah. Honorable Koech, what are your thoughts after reading that report and those proposals? I understand that Kenya Kwanza vehemently declined to accept cutting out the housing levy or the reducing the VAT on fuel.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. You know, we must comment also that there is a team out there, Fred and of course the entire team, for sitting down for so many days to make sure that as a country we have we listen to the people on how we can have better governance as a country, which is very commendable. Nonetheless, it was not, I don't think it is, elections are held so that one governs and the other one goes to the opposition. It is not that they must now tell the government that is sitting what they will do, and even go further to try and amend Finance Act that has been passed, where Ndebambui was seated on the House
opposing it,
and we, of course, but that is the essence of our democracy. But I don't think that it was going to be a National Dialogue Committee that was going to recommend on areas where, as a country, we listen. It is good that we listen to some of the things. Some of the things are going to come to the floor of the House. But even some directives that have been issued by Felix Kosgei on cutting, there was an instruction to make sure that there is a cutting on travels by civil servants. And he even gave a memo and a directive on exactly what was going to be done. For instance, the cabinet secretary was only to be accompanied by one person who was technical, for that matter, on any foreign trip. And I think as a government, we were already implementing some of those things. However, when you walk into this room and listen to this debate, you'll be shocked. You'll probably think that Ndebambui and my friend Fred have just walked into Kenya. And I've realized that, yes, cost of living is very high, and all these things are happening, and it started last year. We watched as this country was going to the dogs. In fact, Ndebambui cheered, because I was with him in last parliament, cheered along when the resources of this country were being plundered. And that is why many people totally are in disagreement of having the State Capture Commission. Some people had to leave their comfortable stay out of the country and come back to make sure that that was not going to be part of what was going to be discussed. Because even as we discuss the cost of living, why are we not checking on why is the cost of living high? We need to be told who is this who drove the cost of living high. And I have insisted, and I was here last week and I said the same, that we must know why we are paying for as a country. What are these loans that are hurting this country?
How does that lower it?
And you know, it's not lower it. People must know so that we are prudent. National Dialogue Committee was listening to everything. They are listening to why, and that is why we have accommodated some of the things that even Azimio are proposing, because it was a discussion. We must, in that breath, I know it was not taken as a recommendation, but Honorable Ichung'wah strongly proposed that we should look at the state capture. We should form a state capture commission to look at how we lost our resources. Let me tell you some. Many people disagree, but it's a moving target. When our election, in fact, we promised, when we were doing elections, I remember one of our rallying call was that we were going to bring the cost of unga to 200 shillings, okay? Now the cost of unga has come down. But people are not talking about the cost of unga anymore.
No,
it is a moving target. People are, that has been brushed aside. I remember even you were very firm and asking me how, without subsidies, we were going to lower the cost of unga. The cost of unga right now, as we are talking, as I said, last year is a cost at the low of 140 and a high of 170. Of course, if you want one of those fancy products as well, you can get it as high as 200, and that is up to you. But the cost of living has come down. And the cost of living, the way to bring it down is not, and I remember telling Honorable Mbui here, was not going to wear sufurias and doing mandamanos. It was making sure that as a country, we roll our sleeves, go to the farms, and the government came in handy by subsidizing fertilizer, subsidizing production, so that we have a bumper harvest that as a country we are enjoying at the moment. Those are macroeconomic policies that as a country we should be gearing towards, and not listening to the stories of this is what you should be doing.
So tell me, what do you understand with cost of living?
Cost of living, inflation is everywhere. There's cost of living that has been occasioned by many other things. The cost of living right now, and even it was submitted in this national NADCO, was one that during the dying days of the last administration, so much money were imprudently used. Okay?
That's what cost of living means.
The cost of living is borrowing. We had no discipline in our fiscal space. We are paying for the loans of people who lived large on borrowed money. I said it. That is why we are paying. But the cost of living, that is the cost of living. The cost of living is high because of so many reasons. Okay? Okay. Part of them. What was admitted?
No, I understand you are giving the reasons. Just tell me, what is cost of living according to you?
Cost of living is how much you can spend against how much you're earning.
So in the country at the moment, what goes into that basket of cost of living?
The cost of living, in what sense? Cost of living is
because you've told me
is massive.
You've told me
what are you talking about? Are you talking about cost of living in terms of how I dress, cost of living?
No, let me specify.
Cost of living in terms of transport.
Let me clarify what I'm talking about. You've told me that you've lowered the cost of unga, and therefore the cost of living has come down.
Yes, food inflation.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, what is cost of living?
If you've lowered cost of living as so many things combined. That's why inflation is not only on one item. Inflation is on so many things. There's food inflation, okay? Our biggest issue when we came to the country was the cost of unga, was the cost of the staple food that this country enjoys. And the only way to do it was for the president to make sure that he reduced the cost of fertilizer from 7,500 to 2,500 to make it affordable for farmers, and also to make sure that there was going to be production. Right now, we are enjoying that because of the cost of food inflation. So unga has come down.
What are you eating?
Sam, let's not go there. Let's be a bit more serious at this point.
No. This is
because I don't want you to run away.
I'll tell you why this
is unga. Okay, let me ask you. Even you, as a consumer of ugali, as the cost of unga come down?
That is not what I'm asking. I mean,
yes. So if it has come down,
you have said it yourself that the price of unga
No. I gave you an opportunity. Let me just finish.
It's between 140 and 170.
Yes.
You said that.
Yes.
And I do not disagree with you. Well, of course, there could be some differences here and there, but it's far from the agenda.
Yes.
I am asking you, the cost of living, you've said the cost of unga has come down.
Yes.
People eat rice.
Yes.
People take sugar.
Absolutely.
People use
And I was
meat.
coming there. I was coming there.
You're not. I asked you a question, you didn't go there.
I am coming there. I was just telling you, Delta has not run away from the fact also that
Beyond
the cost of living in terms of food has come down.
Just hold on.
Okay.
Beyond food, there's what people use to commute.
That's where I'm coming.
It's transport cost.
That's where I'm coming. If you allowed me, let me tell you why I still insist.
I gave you 5 minutes.
Okay, let me finish. Honorable Mbui, he's saying that it is perfectly okay with the reduction of fuel levy by 50%. I have my reservations also, because I listen, and I'm in this country. Part of that money of the fuel levy is going to make sure that we are able to restore our fiscal space and paying of debts. If we say today that we get rid of a fuel levy by 50%, again, we are talking about the country where we came from.
So none of this is practical?
Some of them are practical. Some of them like fuel levy, and that is why.
No, there's a road maintenance levy.
Yeah, that is why Kenya Kwanza refused on the fuel levy and housing fund.
I'm saying
because it didn't make sense.
I'm saying there's a proposal to reduce the road maintenance levy from 18 shillings to 13 shillings. anti-adulteration levy from 18 to 15 shillings. That's a reduction, a combined reduction of 8 shillings. Is it practical?
I really want to see how that will play out in Parliament. You know, when you reduce your levy, what you're actually telling members of Parliament is that the road maintenance that you normally get 22% for maintaining of your roads in Kaira and Kura, you're reducing it by almost the same percentage. That one I can tell you, even right now, without even consulting anywhere, it will be shut down in Parliament. I am certain. No member of Parliament, that is actually sending yourself home.
Okay.
No member of Parliament will report to support that.
Thanks, Honorable Koech. Now, Honorable Ruku, if you look at that report and those proposals you're talking about, clearly, I don't know whether you associate yourself with the views of Honorable Koech in terms of it will be shut down once it comes to the House. Then it looks like there's no possibility that even a litre of petrol costs less if this report is adopted.
We have some very, very lazy recommendations.
Lazy?
Yes, very lazy recommendations.
What do you mean?
Because when you're talking about cost of living,
yeah,
we need to address the real issues of the cost of living and how we can ensure there is job creation, how we can ensure we have many investors coming to this country and setting up manufacturing companies in this country, in this economy, so that we can have more jobs creation, so that we can export more from our nation, so that we can even take care of why the sharing is fluctuating the way it is against dollar. Because you cannot talk about lowering the cost of living without talking about the cost of power in this country. Why do we have a very expensive power in the nation compared to other nations in the region? It's because of the things we call independent power producers. Who are these independent power producers? And that's what you're talking about, state capture. And that's why this team could not talk about independent power producers, because some of the owners of these power producing companies, which are selling power to KPLC at a very high cost, were very senior in the last government. We have an extremely expensive power in the country. Nothing about power that has been addressed in this report. And we can't talk about cost of living when the cost of power is not properly managed. In Parliament, we have motions which are talking about power. But we need to have a national consensus that some of these IPPs must go home. Why should one be able to sell 1 kilowatt of power at 0.3 cents, 0.5 cents of USD, whereas another IPP is selling $2 of the same 1 kilowatt of power? And they're saying that these independent power producers' contract, power purchase agreement, cannot be revoked. And it is a contract which is spanning over 20 years, 28 years, 30 years. I think if we are serious, if you want to put this nation on the right economic trajectory, we have to address power, the cost of power. And we have to make it cheaper, such that every Kenyan can be able to afford. In our villages, the constituencies we represent, most of the villages are in dark from 1963 up to today. Why should we be not having power in a household in our villages? If we have this power in our villages, how will that transform our nation? It will seriously transform our nation. Why is it the power is a privilege of those who may be having some disposable income? We should ensure that there is power in each and every household in the Republic of Kenya by ensuring power, the cost of power comes down. The cost of installation of power to household comes down. So if we are talking about lowering the cost of living, let's talk on serious recommendations, not trying to cut the fuel levy, which helps in maintenance of our roads across the nation. If you go to the nations across, I mean our neighbors who don't have fuel levy, you see the kind of roads they have. Go to Uganda, in Kampala, today, and see the kind of roads we have in Kampala. It's a mess. Go to their villages, it's a mess. So fuel levy, which has helped to maintain our roads network, rural roads, across the nation. Is that what Honorable Boy is telling me to go to Parliament and support? We can't support.
So you don't
but if Honorable Boy comes with a recommendation that IPPs, I mean independent power producers, we are going to deal with them in a most precise manner, then I'll be there supporting. But pharaohs who have ensured the cost of power in this country remain high, and when the cost of power is high, it has a serious ripple effect across all sectors of the economy.
The Kenya Power says that actually the more expensive power is not necessarily from independent power producers. That there are certain geothermal plants that are owned by KenGen and they're expensive because of the cost of investment.
That's not true. That's not true. Sam, do your research properly.
The managing director...
Do your research properly, Sam. The truth of the matter is the cost of power in this country is the way it is because of independent power producer. Number two, wastage. About 20% of our power goes to waste when the lines are idle. There is high levels and they're lower. Why is it that we cannot be able to know how to utilize our power properly? Do you know what we are talking about? 20% of wastage of our power, of the power, which is already produced and which is costing money. Who pays for that 20%? It's the consumers who pay for that 20%, because those who produce power are normally paid. But that 20% loss is transferred to the consumer. That's why we have many villages, the constituents of Honorable Boy, without power. Many households in my constituents without power. And we are talking about transforming our economy. We cannot transform our economy if we don't have cheap and available power across the nation. So let's talk about serious recommendation to change our economy. But when you are talking about very, very lazy recommendations, extremely lazy recommendation.
I'll get back
and
to
this
you.
is work which has been done by Okango here.
I'll get back.
And then you want we want to debate, we want to bring such a report in the house, in the floor of the house.
Honorable
So they can be
if Fred Okango
listen, Sam, we have a serious government. A government which we have to support to take care of this thing.
Oh my God.
I know the current government is serious in addressing the IPPs and the cost of power. And not only that, many other issues. So, to me, I still stand by saying the national dialogue was the premises why we have the national dialogue committee. First, it was wrong. The premises was completely wrong premises, because when you lose an election, please go and prepare for the next election.
For the sake of accountability,
yes.
When this motion was brought to the House, how did you vote?
I gave them an opportunity to go and see whether they are going to give serious recommendations. But now the recommendations which they are bringing on table are very lazy recommendations, which cannot be supported.
You voted to put them in place.
Yeah,
but you're saying it was wrong.
To give some doubt, you know.
Honorable Ruku, you're saying it was wrong to even go this direction.
Yes.
But you voted in support.
Yes.
Why? Why should you trust
because Sam, there is nobody in this world who is a custodian of knowledge, experience, and expertise. Probably I was wrong, but every day is proving me that I was right.
What do you mean?
First of all, I'm saying the premises of the dialogue
was wrong.
Was wrong.
Did you know that when you were voting?
Because it was about elections. It was about saying, oh, I won the elections, you didn't win, then all of a sudden you come up with another thing called cost of living.
Honorable Ruku, did you know that while you were voting in Parliament?
Yes.
So why did you support it?
To give a space. You know, I may be wrong. My opinion may not be always right. I have to listen to the opinion of others. But now, the kind of recommendation which is coming from this team is less a recommendation. It's not addressing the real issues which have been affecting this nation.
Fred,
and we need to sort out this nation.
All right.
We need to put Kenya in the right trajectory.
That's okay.
And we cannot put Kenya in the right trajectory when you're not addressing the issue of power, Sam.
I hear you, Honorable Ruku, but I thought you also sit in Parliament. You should be doing something about it. You have 3 members of Parliament here.
I have a motion
I'm not doubting.
addressing IPPs, addressing cost of power.
How far is it?
Which is about to be debated probably before we go for business. Or if not, in February. So that we talk about serious issues. Sam.
All right. So you have 3 members of Parliament here. I'm not sure I'm hearing very strong support. Does it mean that you've been wasting your time the past, is it more than 60 days? Actually, 90?
Not at all, not at all. You see, Sam, first of all, Honorable Ruku has not read the report. What he has read a summary of the press statement. I want to encourage, when we leave this show, I'll give him a copy of the report of 296 pages. Honorable Ruku, start from paragraph 391 to paragraph 410. You will even see the submission of your own Minister of Energy, Chirchir, what he talked about, all those things you are mentioning here. So read the report. Number 2, it is unfortunate that Honorable Ruku and team would now put the blame on the previous regime. I want to remind Honorable Ruku, in the previous regime, who was the principal assistant to the president for 10 years? Was his party boss now? Who was the majority leader for 8 years? He's now the defense minister. Who was the chair of appropriation, committee of budget and appropriation? Who is now the current majority leader for 8 years. So it means, and who was one of the high-ranking members of parliament in that regime? Is the current deputy president. They were running that regime from both arms of government. The speaker for 10 years is now the attorney general. So they were there. So Ruku, please, sometimes don't just talk. Do your research. Number 2, the members of parliament will receive the report. And as we said, this report has categorized issues. Agreed issues and issues that have not been agreed. But if you look keenly, the submissions even from this table, from Ruku, you can see Kenya Kwanza never wanted to address the cost of living. But interestingly, his own party boss, who is the president, has said that everything in that report is good, they want to go and implement it. Who is Ruku to go and disobey his boss, who he has been following all through from nomination to election and now they're in government? What is he trying to tell us? Is he going to disobey Ruto, who has said that they'll pass the report? The Speaker of the National Assembly yesterday said that they've received the report, they'll pass it. We are saying the issues of concern to the people of Kenya.
No vote.
He has no vote, but he has encouraged this team. Please look at that report and pass it. That's what he said.
And they are telling you they are not going to support.
They are telling the Kenyans. They are not telling me what we want to know. In these reports, we as Azimio have given our position on every issue. In fact, the report, some sections, give the observation from the committee, then recommendation, but before that, it gives every submission of each stakeholder. We were stakeholders. We strongly believe, Sam, that while this report has been released, and Ruku here calls it lazy, some of those recommendations came from Ichungwa, Cheriot, Nambilianga, and Asanomar. Is he saying that his team members were lazy? Is that what he's telling us? Maybe yes. What we want to know is, of this report, what is of a concern to the people and what can be addressed in the immediate so that we address the cost of living. Raila Amolo Odinga has not spoken. And their leader has spoken. Our coalition leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, will be speaking soon. He is reading the report. He has been advised. He has been taken through. He will be speaking. And we will know exactly where we are going. But for now, we want to encourage even the members of parliament, the public, to read the report. Look at the recommendation. You will know who said what and why. For us in Azimio, we strongly believe our delegation head, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka and team, did the best they could. And they said that on where we have not agreed is on the cost of living. All other issues that Ruku was trying to purport here, you know some, and you'll talk about them, they are issues that came from them. We never ask for offices, they ask for offices.
Okay, all right.
Can I just
no, you can't.
No. I'll get to that. Honorable Ruku, just hold on, because I need us to make transition. We just have very few minutes remaining here. I've looked at the concerns about electoral justice and reconstitution of IBC. First of all, you propose... No, who? Fred.
The thief of Kenya proposed.
That you raise the constitution, the composition of the
Selection panel.
panel.
9.
7 to 9, but also getting a lot of strong grip from the political class, that you have 2 representatives of the Parliamentary Service Commission, one each from the majority and minority side, the political parties liaison committee,
3.
1 unaligned, then the other 2 will come from the majority and minority parties, then the Law Society of Kenya,
1.
the Religious Council of Kenya,
2.
and there's another organization there. Does this help, Honorable Mbui, resolve that concern, but also find something peculiar? That actually there's a proposal to amend the Constitution to allow Parliament to vary the intervals of reviewing boundaries of constituencies and wards?
You know, our biggest concern from the beginning was when we felt that Kenya Kwanza wanted to take charge of the next election of 2027 by putting in place a selection panel that would put in place a commission that would be, completely, aligned to Kenya Kwanza. And that's why these proposals have come into place. And I think some of the recommendations are good. One of the things that they've also said is that we cannot be able to change some of these laws, electoral laws, 18 months to the next election, because there were proposals actually in the last regime towards the end, which I think is really one of the problems we are facing. We also have proposed that presidential petitions also, the 14 days are a very short time. By the time you put together evidence, the time is over. So there's also an increase by about a week so that it's fair. So I think some of these proposals are not a bad one. But the one which is still remaining hanging is the audit of the 2023 general election. Because we did ask that they open the servers. That still remains a thorn in the flesh, because I don't think they'll ever want to open the servers, because they probably know that is going to open a Pandora's box. But we still feel that would have been one of the best ways to sort out and to take the country into healing. But Sam, if you can allow me, Ruku has really spoken very strongly about only one of the issues that they believe should have been sorted out, which is the issue of electricity. But I will say this, Sam, and this has been the biggest problem that we are facing. The report is coming to the House. The fact that the President has spoken to it, the Speaker has spoken to it, and I know the Attorney General is actually his constituent, is also in support. You watch the voting pattern and watch his votes. You listen, you play the clip of what he has said here, and on that day, we will insist that everybody's vote be counted. You will see how he will vote. That's the problem we are facing as a country, that we have the very good ideas, we know we canvass good ideas here, but when you get to the floor, suddenly all that energy and know-how disappears, and the whip is applied, and people will vote in a manner that they themselves don't believe in. That's where the problem is. And I think, Sam, if you can allow, Kenya Kwanza's policy, unfortunately, in my opinion, has been to squeeze the last drop of blood from Kenyans. And I think that's where the problem is. Because if you listen to what, even when you're asking them what's the issue of cost of living, they don't want to tell you that it's a cost of transportation of goods and services, which is affected directly by the cost of fuel. They don't want to tell you that it's a cost of food, which the government has completely refused to subsidize when Kenyans were suffering. They don't want to tell you it's a cost of government services, school fees, university fees, which have gone up. And nobody has given us a solution to how their children will go to school next year. You haven't also talked about the fact that government services that we have already paid taxes for, ID cards, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, all those things they are proposing to increase money. Every minister, I think the policy is every minister to squeeze as much as they can. That's why you go to the CS also of lands has also decided now, even us, we want to increase, the services on land transactions. The Minister for Tourism, game park fees. Everybody is trying to get a cent out of Kenyans. And I think that's a problem we are facing. So even as we discuss this National Dialogue Committee report, it's unfortunate that we are dealing with a regime that whose basic, interest and ours are totally, it's like day and night. We are totally opposed.
Honorable Mbui, those things that you mentioned there, the cost of services, does Parliament have any role in that?
Actually, some Parliament does have a role, a major role. But what they keep doing, and this is where they circumvent the process, they pass them as regulations, they publish them, and then we have as Parliament to start insisting that they bring them to the House for us to deal with them under the Statutory Instruments Act, which says that they must be brought to Parliament through a committee of the House.
Before raising the cost, the charges for registering, getting an ID from 0 to, say, 1,000 shillings, it has to come to the House.
The minute it is gazetted, it becomes law, and they start collecting that money. That's why we are happy the court stopped it quickly, because now it has to come to the House for the House to make a decision. So what the House can do is annul. And then in annulling, it will take a period of discussion and debate. So they take advantage of that, and I think that's where the problem is.
All right. I really wanted to hear views on this particular issue of IEBC, reconstituting the panel, and all of a sudden, if you're to count the 2 Parliamentary Service Commission and the 3 representatives of the Political Parties Liaison Committee, those are 5 out of 9. It gives the political class dominance in a selection panel already.
Without even necessarily going to the composition of the selection panel. And I want to laud Okongo, the technical team, Okango. I keep mixing them. Let me just say Fred. It's because part of actually what was discussed and the recommendation is electoral reforms. And making sure that making sure that we do not have a problem in future of people who have this habit of disputing elections. It came out very strongly, so that no one in the coming general election should dispute election. It should be very clear. It should be verifiable. It should be credible election. And that is part of this election reform, because there are people who still believe that elections are won by institutions. Elections are won by the people you appoint to IBC as commissioners. Elections are won at the ballot. Elections are won on the ground. They are not won in these offices. So that is the huge problem that we have today. And that bad manners of always complaining and running to Supreme Court, I hope, was addressed by...
bad manners, isn't it, within the Constitution?
It is within the Constitution, but it cannot be just the same team that goes to court perpetually. We will have to make a stop and some... Look at what happened.
How do you stop that?
Look at what happened.
If you lost the Belgut seat, I'm not saying you will lose. If you lost it, and you go to court, what's the problem with that? Did
you see the margin in Liberia between George Weah and it was a margin of about 100,000 votes that they lost with. Weah was gracious enough to say, yes, perfectly okay, you've won, and I will support you. In Kenya, no one loses election.
In fact,
in Kenya, it is stolen when you lose.
One of the proposals is to extend, like he says, the period of hearing a presidential petition
to 21 days.
From 14 to 21.
Perfectly okay.
If you're dealing with that, I should be waking up now. If that is being...
Wake up, Sam. Wake up.
So if that is already happening... Why do you have a problem with people going to court if they do not agree?
It is okay. I'm just saying some of the things that I see there should actually put an end to most of the people who have a perpetual bad manners of going to court because of losing an election or calling for unnecessary mandamano. This is a good process. This is where we'll agree so that elections that come out are verifiable and everyone can admit that those were very good results. And I know you're about to cut me short. Let me just say this. There is in this team also of Kenal Kango, Fred, there is Cherara, who has also come out to announce their results. Eugene Wamalwa is a terrible, insincere human being who participated in that process. You cannot sit through the process only to come out the last day and run away and announce your results in some charge. No, allow me that.
No, you didn't do that.
It is totally insincere of him to have run away. We know there's a team here that wanted to sabotage. There's a team that wanted
better.
I know, but he was there. Why did he not leave out? That is what I'm saying. He's akin to Cherera because he was there, seated all along, and then only to run to some church function and announce that, I don't agree with some of the things.
He's not here, but we have his
so it is insincere, but I want to laud the rest of the team for coming up with a solid report, a good report. We will soberly debate it, and some of the proposals that are here, we will take them. Some of them, of course.
Now, all of you are confusing me. Sober report, solid report, which you don't agree with.
I said some of the issues I will not agree with, like this one of fuel levy. Count me out.
Honorable Ruku, I want you to have the final word, but also tell me, moving forward, what it will take to bring together these concerns raised in the report, but also what other Kenyans and other members may have.
Some, yes. The team came up with how to reconstitute IEBC. the referees in this game. And that's okay. But still I have a problem, Sam, because we are not addressing the software. And I want my brother here to tell me and tell Kenyans whether the report is addressing the software, and we are talking about the Election Act, and whether we are proposing the amendment of the Election Act to ensure that we automate the entire election process. And Sam, I have a bill, I have an amendment in Parliament to amend the Election Act, Section 2, number 24 of 2011, and also to amend Section 44, 44A, 40 of Section 24 of 2011, 44C, 44B, 44D, 44E, 44F, 44G, you know, is our all amendment to ensure we automate the election process and we synchronize, you know, the election process with the National Examination Council, and also to synchronize election process with the birth and death registration process. So that the issues of saying there are some politicians who are elected and they don't have proper papers. We have seen it in the past. So that the issue of saying the election ends at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. and the counting process starts. When the election process ends, the voting ends, we know how many vote those who are campaigning to become the president have gotten that polling station. MCAs, MPs, and women. At the close of voting process, we need a proper laws put in place as far as the Election Act is concerned. We don't need to change the IBC. Yes, we can change the IBC, but if we don't change the software, the process, then we'll still be having the same complaints which we're having, that I won, I was rigged. So we have to get it right, and we have to ensure this business of someone losing election and saying that he lost has to come to an end. I want to hear that from Okango and this my friend here. And if they don't have that solution, then
what he's saying is that
their recommendations are just lazy.
I want us to take a look at the feedback. You just said that these issues of people losing elections and going out to say that they lost should end. I don't understand what that means.
No, it means Raila Odinga.
At Citizen TV Kenya, at Sam Gituku's activities, Brian Chamwa, the committee's attention was diverted from its primary objective. Rather than focusing on concrete measures to reduce the cost of living, the dialogue gradually evolved into a platform for intense debate surrounding various political positions. MC Rumors, the so-called dialogue talks was not about the common mwananchi, it was all about politicians' selfish interests. Was it that the high cost of living is not addressed? It was the same politicians who supported the Punitive Finance Act. Kenyans are on their own. Babu Michael, on the NADCO report, I heard Azimio say they will not sign it without cost of living addressed. What happened? What happened to the grave submissions like those of control of budget? Budgetary corruption will still be the order of the day. Sir Nixon Dugire, on El Nino, it's time to note all the natural waterways, riparian grounds where to build strong bridges, where to erect dikes, etc., such that next time the safety will be enhanced. Hope the tax collected will be enough for all this. All right, Engineer Lazaro, this time round, Meteorological Department warned us early enough. Very unfortunate to watch national government and counties trading verbal of accusations of El Nino and at the same time claiming to have been praying for it. Okay, Rev Harry, on the issue of El Nino, this is not the time for blame game. Let both county and national government work together. However, on dialogue report, let it favor common mwananchi, not elites only. God bless. And we have to leave it at that. Fred Okango, thank you so much for making time. Geoffrey Ruku, Honorable Robert Mboya, Honorable Nelson Koecha, asanteni sana kwa kuja. We'll continue to have a conversation about this, especially the National Dialogue Committee report. 296 pages of presentations and submissions of different organizations, but also the summaries. We'll be talking about them for the rest of the week. My name is Sam Gituku. See you again some other time. Bye for now.